Bam, everybody. Welcome to this impromptu early hour episode of The Branca Show. Scheduled at the last minute to cover the eminent plea hearing for OnlyFans model Courtney Clenney over the killing of her boyfriend, Christian Ombuseli. This happened a couple of years ago, and things have been dragging along ever since. I had planned to cover this trial live when it finally occurred. It's been delayed, and it was scheduled to start later this year when last week they suddenly decided, or I should say announced, that she had expected a plea deal. So the deal is she and her boyfriend, this OnlyFans model who was making millions of dollars doing OnlyFans stuff. I'm not going to talk about what that is. I'm sure you know if you're adults in the room. And they were living in a very beautiful apartment on the Miami beach. But they had a turbulent relationship, mostly because Courtney Clenney was turbulent. There was lots of video of her being violent towards Christian Ombuseli, who was much larger than her. And this particular day of his death, they were in her apartment on the beach in Miami, and she put a knife in his chest, killing him. A kitchen knife, like a table knife, into his chest, nicked his heart. He bled out. He died. And she was charged with murder. And this all happened, of course, in Florida. Now, she was interviewed by police without a lawyer present, and she tried to mitigate her offense by making it look like self-defense. She said, well, he was scaring me. I was defending myself. I just tossed the knife in his direction when he was coming at me. I never intended to cause him mortal harm. But they had a big hearing for bail early on to try to get her released. Florida prosecutors did not want her released. They feared that she would flee because of all the money she had in the bank. And I'm sure they were right to have that fear. And for this bail hearing, they had several days of testimony from police, from investigators, from her parents. And it turns out the medical examiner determined that the extent of the wound to his chest, the force needed to drive this knife into this big barrel-chested man's heart, could not have resulted from this little OnlyFans girl just tossing a knife across a room. She's not an expert knife thrower. In fact, if the trial had happened, I understand they were planning to call an expert knife thrower as a witness. But in any case, it wasn't looking good for her. Now, her lawyer was doing a great job by delaying things. The more guilty you are, the longer you want to delay the actual trial. Even if you're being held in jail awaiting trial, at least you haven't been convicted yet. And there was lots of evidence of her beating and attacking her boyfriend, caught on camera, testimony by security guards, witnesses who heard and saw these attacks. It wasn't even the first time she stabbed him. She had stabbed her boyfriend before and put him in the hospital. So it wasn't looking good for her if she went to trial. Now we're going to have her plea deal. By the way, they also announced in the last couple of days that the family of Christian Ombuseli, which had been very much pursuing her prosecution, is fine with this plea deal because she also agreed to a settlement with them in their civil suit against her for wrongful death. So it looks like Courtney Clenney's lawyer has gotten everything wrapped up nicely for his client. He's going to avoid a murder charge, potentially life in prison without possibility of early release. I would expect the plea deal is a manslaughter deal, and we'll have to see what the sentence is likely to be. She really buried herself by talking to police without a lawyer present. Those statements, of course, can and will be used against her in a court of law. By the way, this is not today's show. This is not the formal show for the Branca Show. It just popped up on my radar at the last minute, and I've covered this in detail before because it is a purported self-defense decision. And Shane makes a great suggestion. I should do a couple of polls. So, expectation for charge pleaded to. Let's see. Obviously, it won't be murder, so I'll say No point pleading to I guess it could be murder if there's an agreement on sentence. Remember, you have to put numbers. Don't click on things when I put the poll up. Manslaughter. I'll say manslaughter 15 years. Manslaughter. Whoops. Less than 15 years. And lesser charge. All inclusive. Create, start, and show. There we go. So there's the poll. Murder, but something less, a compromise sentence. Manslaughter, 15 years, which I think would be the max. 15 or 20 is usually the max for manslaughter. Manslaughter less than 15 years, a compromise sentence, or a lesser charge, and put the appropriate number in the chat. Oh, looks like correct. There she is. All right, let me switch over. Here we go. This is
Harvey. Was Pittman here? Pittman was here? Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's not what I want. There we go. That's better. I'll put the poll up here. So we'll be doing a full Branca show at noon as usual, noon Eastern time as usual, looking at illegal migrants holding the keys to their own jail cell. Why do we allow them to do that? Why do we allow them to choose whether to stay detained pending deportation or be deported? Or be released back into the wild among American citizens to commit more crimes and more offenses against American sovereignty. That's what today's noon show will be on. This is just a impromptu opportunity. So murder is getting 20% murder with a lesser sentence. Manslaughter, 15 years, 60%. Manslaughter with a lesser sentence, 20% so far in our poll. I think they'll sound about right to me. I think she's going to get manslaughter and pretty much close to what the max is for manslaughter.
You got to make sure you got everything right.
By the way, much of this plea deal may have been driven by some prosecutorial alleged misconduct in this case. The prosecutors engaged in some sketchy stuff here and there in this case. Of course, the defense did too. Her parents did too. But when the prosecutors do it, it's really just wrong.
Carlito, welcome back.
Everybody's so friendly in court, except the defendant. She looks a little different than in her thumbnail, huh? That's her thumbnail. Look how pretty she is. And this is her. This is what she looks like in jail. Those are her lawyers. The gentleman in the light jacket here. I'm blanking on his name. Let me find it. He's a very famous lawyer, and he's been doing a great job. And the woman in the red jacket is also counsel on this case. Frank Prieto Law Firm. Very capable. He did a great job here if he got his client a plea deal. It looks like one person. On your lap at all times. Keep your phones down. No recording. Now they're going over the conditions of the plea with her now. It's worth noting that she made her living doing OnlyFans stuff. I would imagine her value as an OnlyFans asset has lost considerable value in the couple of years she spent in jail. How long has it been? Yeah, it was April 2022 April 2022, 4.5 years since she fatally stabbed her boyfriend. Those little heart wounds, folks, they create an enormous amount of blood outside the body. It's the highest pressure blood in the body, as you might imagine. And I've covered cases where, much like this one, a little girl stabbed a much larger guy in the heart with a little folding pocket knife, just nicked the heart. And it looked like someone had taken a pressure washer of blood to that apartment. There was blood on the walls, on the ceiling, down the stairs. It's amazing how much of a mess it can make. Clenney had previously been arrested for domestic battery against Ombuseli. That was in 2021. In February, just a couple of months before this knife killing, there was video of her attacking him in an elevator, beating on him, and he was just basically trying to hold her off. She kept slapping and hitting him. Again, as I mentioned, she previously stabbed him. I don't know if she was charged for that. We don't know yet what the prison time is. We don't even know what the plea charge is. They just made an announcement that a plea deal. Oh, that's not. Is that? Oh, that is Frank Prieto. He shaved since the last time I saw him. He's clean shaven now. And Clenney's attorneys plan a press conference right after this hearing. So.
Just give it to the judge.
She has stabbed the prior boyfriend. I think the prior boyfriend is the same guy, Toby. So how we doing for the plea? Yeah, it's still about the same numbers. About 20% for murder with a lesser sentence, 40% for manslaughter. That's the majority. Manslaughter with 15 years, 25% for manslaughter less than 15, and 18% for a lesser charge. I'm going to take that poll down for now. The multi-day hearing they did for bond was very, very revealing. It did not look good for Courtney Clenney, largely because she buried herself with those statements she made to police without a lawyer present. You ought not be doing that, folks. You ought not be talking to police, certainly after identifying any exculpatory evidence or witnesses at the scene. Once you're dealing with detectives, you should not be saying anything to detectives except asserting your right to counsel and asserting your right to silence. Right. Asserting your right to counsel, asserting your right to silence. Unequivocally. By the way, it has to be unequivocal. I am asserting my right to counsel. I want a lawyer. I am asserting my right to silence. I'm not answering any questions. If you're ambivalent about it, the assertion doesn't count. Once the assertion counts, they have to stop asking you questions. But if you're ambivalent, you say, I don't know, should I get a lawyer? I don't know if I should answer questions. That's not an assertion of your rights. It has to be unequivocal. And once you assert your rights, keep your mouth shut. If you just start talking substantively about the events, you've waived your right to silence, and they can start asking you questions again. So don't be doing that. Just follow Fauci. Assert the fifth. You can just say, I don't answer questions. I don't answer questions without my lawyer here. And once your lawyer's there, by the way, you probably still shouldn't be answering questions. Your lawyer should be answering questions because what your lawyer says cannot be used against you in a court of law, but what you say can. Let your lawyer do your talking to the detectives, to law enforcement, and also to the media. There's no reason you should ever be talking to the media. Only bad things can happen from you talking to the media. Sometimes the media needs to be spoken to, but if they do, it should be your lawyer doing that. Fauci deserves prison 100 times more than she does. Yeah, I don't think Fauci deserves prison. I think prison is way too good for Fauci. Way too good. Yeah, and as Shane's reminding everybody, this is not our normal noon show. I just did this one at the last second because the hearing popped up, and I realized I was going to be available to do it. I thought I would be tied up this morning. We'll have a noon show. We'll be covering the case now going before the Supreme Court about whether or not criminal detainees, illegals in America who've been detained, are being held in custody, are entitled to mandatory bond hearings that will release them back among American citizens before they can be deported. Whether or not they hold the keys to their jail. That's what the legal arguments are really about. That's what we'll be covering at noon. It's obviously an insane position to believe the criminal illegals already detained should be able to free themselves from jail at their whim. But that's what some federal judges have said. Some unelected black-robed, tyrannical, inferior federal district trial court judges. They got quite a few corrections officers in there. Everyone in the green jacket. This looks like the prosecutor right there. The Miami prosecutor's office has a reputation for being a bit sketchy. I wish I had my buddy Steve Gosney on here to share this with me, but I set this up on too short notice. Steve and I were going to cover this trial together if it had gone to trial. And let's see, what do we have? We have no super chats. No super chats. Any Rumble rants? I forgot to send out the posts. Westpro, $10 says thanks. Yeah, I think the first comment in the chat was not meaning to be an a-hole, but aren't there more interesting topics? There are more interesting topics, and we'll cover them. But this is kind of the bow on the end of this case that I've been covering since it initially happened as a self-defense case. So given that I have the opportunity to cover this plea hearing, I would have felt remiss not being here at the end since I was here at the beginning. Rumble rant. Thanks. I appreciate that, my friend. By the way, if you want to learn about self-defense law, how to be hard to convict, if you're ever compelled to defend yourself, your family, or your property, I teach you that. In fact, we've written a best-selling book on it, The Law of Self-Defense Principles. Easy read, plain English. We give this book away for free. Go to lawofselfdefense.com, lawofselfdefense.com. We do ask you to cover the cost of shipping the book to you, but the book itself is free. Lawofselfdefense.com. Get the book.
Oh, yeah,
Don't make the same kind of mistakes Courtney Clenney made. I mean, it may be possible. It could have been a lawful killing of Christian Ombuseli. Maybe he was attacking her, but she sure didn't make it look this way. By the way, obviously, I'm not wearing a tie. That's how quickly we put the show together. That's her lawyer, Frank Prieto, her lead counsel. And the reason, of course, the prosecution did not want her to have bail, and she has not had bail.
All right.
Oh, here we go. Here's the judge. Here come the judge.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Good morning. So here in the case of the state of Florida versus Courtney Clenney, with the parties' state of appearances for the record, starting with the state.
Yes, Your Honor. Sean Abuhoff on behalf of the state, Kathleen Hogue on behalf of the state, and then on behalf of the next of kin, Mr. Larry Hanfield.
Good morning. And on behalf of Ms. Clenney.
Good morning, Your Honor. Frank Prieto on behalf of Ms. Clenney, along with my co-counsel, Ms. Sabrina Puglisi, and Ms. Diane Karames. Ms. Clenney's present in custody, Your Honor.
Also, Judge, I apologize for interrupting, but also the next of kin is present. Mr. Hanfield's going to introduce them.
Oh, I thank you.
Yes, please stand. First, we have the mom.
So this is the lawyer for the family, and now the family.
We have the brother, Jeffrey. Please stand.
And last week, they agreed to a settlement for the wrongful death of Christian Ombuseli.
And we have other family members, Auntie, we have Clara, and we have Sandra.
Thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you.
And Judge, just for the record, she's printing on page 2 of Your Honor's calendar.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Abuhoff, I understand the state will be filing an amended information information at this time?
Yes, Judge. And in anticipation of this plea, the state has filed a amended information charging the defendant with one count of manslaughter with a deadly weapon. It is a first-degree felony, punishable up to 30 years in state prison. That changes her guideline score from what it was to now 124.5 months in state prison, up to 30 years in state prison.
All right, Mr. Prieto?
Yeah, Judge, we've entered plea not guilty, demand discovery, and request trial by jury. At this time.
That means
Oh.
I understand the parties have reached a resolution in this case where Ms. Clenney will be pleading guilty. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right.
That is correct, Judge. I am passing up the written plea agreement that is signed by not only the state, the defendant, but also all of her attorneys. Major part of this, Judge, is that she's pleading guilty to this amended information, to the charge that was announced just now. There's a factual proffer that's a part of this plea agreement. We're going to ask Your Honor to read it. She will be agreeing to that factual proffer, but most importantly, she is agreeing and admitting that she is the cause of the stab wound that Mr. Ombuseli received, and then that she is taking criminal responsibility for her actions. As part of this plea agreement, the state is willing to accept her plea. We've discussed this at length with the next of kin and certainly with Mr. Hanfield. And certainly when there's any agreement, no one is happy at the end of this, and we understand that. But the agreement that the state is willing to accept is that the defendant would be adjudicated guilty. She'll be sentenced to 6 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of reporting probation. As part of her probation, she must complete a mental health evaluation and treatment. There's a time frame in which she is to complete it. That's part of the plea agreement. Substance abuse evaluation and treatment. That's also a time constraint that's going to be in the agreement. And then it's 60 days, Your Honor. And then the batterer's intervention program. If she does violate her probation in any way at any point, she's waiving extradition back to Florida. And as well that she faces back to her guidelines, which are 124.5 months in state prison, up to 30 years in state prison. Although not specifically in this plea agreement, the state attorney has asked me to discuss the topic specifically that it discusses, and it's important that nobody who is a convicted murderer to killing someone, if someone is convicted of murder, they are not to financially benefit as a result of that. That's Florida Statute 944.512. It's effectively our iteration of the Son of Sam law, but it is a statutory lien that attaches automatically. And if the Attorney General's office were to decide to seek some form of lien or process in that, then that we would be supporting them in that. We do believe that nobody should benefit financially from murdering somebody. So we will provide any evidence that they request. We'll work hand in hand with the Attorney General's office if they so seek to do some form of lien or some financial proceeding against Ms. Clenney, understanding that she will be released at some point and may seek to financially benefit as a result of this. But it's not part of the plea agreement, but it is something that attaches automatically.
All right. Mr. Prieto, I'll hear from you as to the plea agreement in its written form. Is that your understanding of the plea?
That is correct, Judge. And all the conditions and all the agreements are contained within that document. Outside the four corners of those multiple page document, we do not agree that number 944.512 is constitutional. We reserve our right to challenge that.
At this point, that's not part of this proceeding. It attaches automatically. It is constitutional. It is the law. What they do with subsequent hearings is to them. But as we stand here today, because it does attach, I'm just simply announcing that we will work hand in hand with the Attorney General's office. It needs no further discussion.
By the way, I expect she'll get credit for time served. She's been in jail for 4.5 years.
Speak on my client's behalf, and so I'm going to put on the record that we believe that statute's unconstitutional. It's not an issue for the plea agreement, like Mr. Adler said. It is 100% accurate. However, we reserve the right to challenge that in the future. We do not think it's constitutional, and it would be challenged should any Attorney General seek to enforce that. But that's an argument for another day should it arise.
All right. Very good. In preparation for today's proceedings, I have been privy to the agreed upon plea, and I will ratify the agreement of the parties at this time.
Okay, she could have said no.
This case
Judge could have said no.
4 years ago, and 2022. Since then, the parties, both the state of Florida and the defense in this case, have engaged in diligent and extensive preparation of the case. That preparation consisted of a thorough investigation that included, but was not limited to, the routine discovery process that is involved in a complex criminal case, as well as literally thousands of pages of legal motion.
The judge is so happy to get rid of this case.
Consultation of experts from both sides who opined on various legal issues, such as self-defense, battered partner syndrome, and issues regarding manner of death. Based on the investigation of the case and the resulting legal analysis of the strengths and weaknesses of this case from both the state's perspective as well as the defense.
The squeaking chairs are louder than the judge.
The victim's family's wishes to bring closure to this horrific and life-changing experience. The parties have reached a resolution that this court will not frustrate. The parties have also agreed on a factual proffer.
Is that true? For time served?
That I will now read into the record. The state of Florida and the defendant agree as to the following factual proffer. A. Christian Ombuseli, hereafter the victim, and the defendant began dating in late 2020. Their relationship is defined by the parties as being extremely tempestuous and combative, as both have been involved in numerous domestic violence incidents. B. The victim and the defendant moved to South Florida in January 2022, taking up residence in a condominium located at One Paraíso Residences, located in Miami-Dade County. There were many complaints made by residents and security staff lodged against the couple during the 3 months that they resided in the complex. As a result, the management company was in the process of evicting the couple. C. On April 3rd, 2022, Miami Police and Miami Fire Rescue responded to their condo after a 911 call was made reporting a stabbing. Officers found the victim with a singular stab wound to the chest. After the incident, the defendant provided a knowingly, intelligent, and voluntarily made statement to the police, confirming that she was responsible for the stab wound. The knife penetrated approximately 8 centimeters into the victim's chest, puncturing the right subclavian artery. The victim was transported to Jackson Memorial Hospital, where he died from his injuries.
He was dead in the apartment.
Please swear in, Attorney.
Yes, Your Honor.
I saw early crime scene photos that were
Right hand,
released. It was bloody.
Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you're about to give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can put your hand down. Please state your full name for the record.
Courtney Clenney,
What is your date of birth?
4/29/2022.
How far did you get in school?
I have a GED.
Do you have any history of mental illness?
I was diagnosed with severe PTSD.
Are you currently under the influence of drugs, alcohol, or medication?
No, Your Honor.
Have you understood everything that was discussed with your attorneys prior to
She's
coming to
30.
court, as well as what we're doing here in court today?
Yes, Your Honor.
I understand you wish to plead guilty to manslaughter in exchange for the plea that was read into the record a moment ago. Has anyone, including your own attorney, promised you anything other than that?
No.
Has anyone forced, threatened, or coerced you to accept a plea at this time?
No.
Do you understand?
It's always
that if you are
coerced.
not a United States citizen, this plea will result in negative immigration consequences such as deportation or removal? Have you spoken to your attorneys about that, and do you still wish to accept this plea knowing that?
Yes,
Do you understand you're waiving your right to a trial?
yes,
Do you understand you're waiving your right to remain silent, and that silence cannot be used against you at trial? Do you understand you're waiving your right to testify?
yes,
Do you understand you're waiving your right to confront, cross-examine, and present witnesses? Do you understand you're waiving your right to hold the state of Florida to its burden of proving the case beyond a reasonable doubt?
yes,
Do you understand you're waiving your right to appeal?
yes,
The following question does not seem to apply in this case, but I have to ask in every case. Do you understand that the offense to which you are pleading is a sexually violent or sexually motivated offense, or if you've been previously convicted of such an offense, This plea may result in involuntary civil commitment as a sexually violent predator upon the completion of your sentence.
Yes, ma'am.
You understand if you violate the terms and conditions of your probation, you're facing up to 30 years in the state prison.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you still wish to plead guilty? Are you pleading guilty because you are in fact guilty and you believe this plea is in your best interest? Have you spoken to your attorneys about the plea? Have they answered all of your questions? Do you need any more time to discuss the plea?
So she was jailed August 2022, so
Satisfied with their
actually
statement?
4 years ago.
I'd like to
She'll
talk
get credit
for
for
a
that
moment
4 years.
about the written plea agreement that I have in my hands. It is 8 pages. And on the bottom left of each page, it says defendant's initials, CC. Are those your initials?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you reviewed every line, every word, every page of this plea agreement with your attorneys?
Yes.
Now turning over to page 6 of 8. It's entitled Defendant's Representation of Effectiveness of Counsel. Is that your signature over the line which is defendant?
Yes.
Yeah, the court stenographer is wearing pretty saucy
Okay.
shoes for court.
Each of your attorneys has also signed on page 7 and 8, Mr. Prieto, Ms. Rourke Puglisi, and Ms. Carrama. So those are your signatures.
Yes.
And finally, certificate of defendant on page 8 of 8. Once again, Courtney Clenney, defendant. Is that your signature on that line? Do you understand that even if I do not state orally here on the record that everything contained within this written plea agreement will be made part of the judgment and sentence, even if I don't say it out loud?
Yes.
I can't fix the judge's audio.
Reviewed all items of evidence disclosed by the state with Ms. Clenney.
It'll just make the chair louder.
Does the defense know of any items of physical evidence containing DNA that could exonerate the defendant? State?
No, Your Honor.
Defense? Does the defense waive PSI? Do the state and defense stipulate to a factual basis?
Pre-sentence
State
investigation.
stipulates.
Defense?
stipulates as contained in the plea.
Ms. Clenney, I find the plea has been entered into knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently. That you understand the nature and consequences of the plea. There's a factual basis to the plea, and that you're represented by good and competent counsel with whom you say you're satisfied. At this time, I will be adjudicating you, and I'm going to turn to page 3 of 8, to the charge of manslaughter with a deadly weapon. I'm sentencing you to 6 years in the state prison with all applicable credit for time served.
There you
followed
go.
by 5 years of reporting probation. As a condition of that probation, you will complete a mental health evaluation and all required treatment deemed necessary. You will complete a substance abuse evaluation and complete all required treatment deemed necessary, as well as.
Yeah, she made millions on OnlyFans.
Intervention program within the first year of probation.
And she's been living free for 4 years. I guess except for her legal expenses.
That will be made part of the judgment and sentence. I'm assessing court costs and any and all statutory and mandatory fines. You will be fingerprinted. We should have DNA on file. Before we turn it to the victim impact portion, is there anything further on behalf of the state?
Nothing from the state, Judge.
Defense?
Yeah, Judge, I would just, as far as corrections and computing her time served, to remember she was initially detained in Hawaii when she was in the rehab facility. So her actual booking date here at TGK does not reflect all of her credit for time served. I don't have the date of arrest, but I believe the date of arrest in Hawaii was August 10th of 2022. So she should receive all credit for time served from that date moving forward.
Does the state agree?
But Judge, the only issue is going to be, one, there has to be an order for it. Otherwise, it's going to be from the time when she was brought into custody. So,
Right. So if you're in agreement, let's draft an order, credit for time served on August 10th, 2022.
We will do that. We'll have it to your honor today.
All right. Anything further?
That's exactly 4 years.
No, your honor.
All right. I'm filing the written plea agreement that I have now initialed and executed with the clerk. I'd like to now turn it over to.
She wasn't in custody in rehab. They took her out of rehab
Extend my deepest condolences
into custody.
to the family. As I said previously, thank you all for making the time to come here today. And I'm very, very sorry for this.
She got 6 years, but she served 4. So she'll get credit for time served.
Who speaks on behalf of the entire family. I believe we have Ms. Karen Akuma, who is going to be reading the victim's mother's statement to the court.
Thank you.
The whole family's from Africa, so the victim's mother may well not speak English. Her family basically smuggled her out of Florida to Hawaii to hide her from Florida authorities. It was, it wasn't really for purposes of rehab. They just wanted her out of the state. Speedy trial is a right of the defendant. The defendant can waive their right to speedy trial. And generally, the more guilty you are, the slower you want the trial to go. So I'm sure she did not assert her right to a speedy trial. She waived it to drag things
As I
out.
stand here to read my victim impact statement, I first give thanks to the Lord Almighty for his protection and guidance over our family throughout these past 4 years. I also want to thank the attorneys, the state attorney's office, Larry Hanfield, and everyone who helped make sure that Christian's voice and our family's voices were heard. I thank our family and our friends who called, prayed for us, checked on us, and stood beside us through this very, very difficult journey. I am Christian's mother. Words can never fully explain how Christian's death has affected my life and the lives of everyone in our family. There is simply too much pain to put on paper. On April 4th, 2022, while I was at work, I received the call that no parent should ever have to receive. I was asked to give consent for my son's eyes to be donated. I had just talked to him the day before and had no knowledge that he had been killed. That was the darkest day of my life. And the darkness continued to unfold as I learned Christian had been killed by his girlfriend, Courtney Clenney, someone he had trusted and loved. Since April 2022, I have lived with fear, anxiety, sleepless nights, heartache, and more tears than I could ever count. 4 years later, there are still nights when I cannot sleep. There are moments when my mind goes back to the last moments of Christian's life. As his mother, those thoughts are very difficult for me to carry. There was a joy in my life and in our family's life before Christian died that has never completely returned. His death did not only affect me, however. It affected my entire family, including his older brother, Jeffrey, his cousins who were raised as siblings, and his grandmother who loved him so much and called him her precious. We have all had to learn how to live with the empty place that cannot be filled. But I do not want Christian to be remembered only for how he died. Christian was my
Stabbed by a hoe.
everyone who knew Christian, who truly knew him, can attest that he was kind-hearted, compassionate, friendly.
Yeah, someone is reading it for the mother.
He cared about other people. I remember one day when Christian and I were driving to a store. I stopped and I was going to give a homeless man a few dollars. Christian encouraged me to do much more than that. It was a small moment, but it showed the kind of heart he had. He saw another human being who needed help, and he wanted to make sure that that person had enough. Christian, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud that I had the privilege of being your mother. Those are the memories that no one can ever take from us and me. Nothing can erase the pain of the day that I buried my son.
A lot of money.
Nothing can describe what it feels like.
The makeup, that
for a mother
makeup
to
is
stand
a
at the grave of her child.
is a spell.
There are also the things that will never happen for me now that he's gone. The birthdays, the holidays we will not celebrate with him. The conversations we will never have. The person he would have continued to become. Those losses continue much longer after today's court case ends. For more than 4 years, we've lived with the loss every day and waited for accountability. Today closes a legal chapter, but it certainly doesn't close our grief. No sentence, no plea can bring back my son to me. My only hope is to carry his memory forward and to continue healing as a family. My prayer is that after today, Christian will simply not be remembered by the public as a name connected to a criminal case. He was a son. He was a brother. He was a cousin. He was a nephew and a grandson. And he was a friend to a lot of people. He was loved. He had a future, and his life had value and mattered. As a family, we are very private people. We have endured this loss while much of Christian's life and death have been discussed publicly and inaccurately to support a narrative created by Courtney, the person who took my son's life. There are parts of our grief that belong only to us, and I choose to keep those things within our family. But I want this court to understand this much. The loss of Christian did not end on April 4th, 2022. We carry it with us every day. Through everything, I continue to place my faith in God. Christian Ombuseli, I know you are with the Lord. Onwa, as your brother called you, which means the moon in the sky that shines for everyone. That is how I choose to remember you, as a light. Your legacy and your memory will remain with us. We miss you. We love you. May you continue to rest in peace, my son.
We'll never know what the settlement was. It must have been in the millions. Of course, the money does not bring back their son, who by all accounts was a nice guy, involved with a bad woman. I mean, he was living off her. He was living off her porn. But he had plenty of excuse to be violent with her. She attacked him quite a lot. Stabbed him more than once. The second time, fatally, of course. But I don't know of any evidence of him hurting her.
State Representative of the State Attorney's Office, Courtney Clenney.
This is the Ombuseli family lawyer.
On behalf of the Ombuseli family, I would like to read into the record your final comments. April 4th of 2022, Christian Ombuseli suffered a painful and tragic death at the hands of the person he loved. Sadly, that would be the person that would ultimately take his life. Christian loved deeply. It was his love that caused him to stay. Even after being previously cut in the face, previously stabbed in the leg by Courtney.
By this witch.
He would later write that his love.
I think that's Courtney Clenney's father right there.
In many ways, he predicted his own death at the hands of Courtney Clenney.
That might be her mother. I don't recall what her mother looks like.
Unfortunately, like so many individuals who are get caught up in.
They were living in a very nice apartment on Miami Beach, right on the beach.
Just destructive relationship, he stated. And we are here today because what he believed became a reality. By resolving this case today by way of a plea, Courtney Clenney avoids being judged by a jury of her peers.
6 years.
That will never be able to escape.
Credit for time served. 4 years time served.
For anyone's conduct.
And I believe it's 1-to-1. I don't think it's a 1.5 multiplier for the county time.
By our Creator, our Almighty God. Your actions, you need to know, as you sit here today, And as you finish out serving your time for punishment, that you have left the Ombuseli family with a void that can never be filled. The pain that continues to endure today, as painful as it was when they learned of his untimely death. It is a pain that will never completely go away. A chair where family gathers for holidays will always remain empty. The Ombuseli family has been forced into joining a membership.
She'll be out in 2 years or less.
That no family should ever want.
Probably less.
And as a family of mothers of murdered children, as a family, we still cannot get past the fact that Christian was stabbed while you remained on the phone with your mom. You then called downstairs to security, and then your third and final call, which should have been your first call, was to 911. In the meantime, you offered no life-saving measures.
Well, nothing could have saved them.
To try to save Christian's life. To us, that is inhumane. Christian was someone's son, someone's brother, someone's nephew, someone's cousin, someone's friend, and most important,
You'll probably end up doing 20 additional months.
Loved. His life had meaning. He had a future. And his family deserved to grow old with him. He was robbed of all those things while you still have all yours to enjoy.
Except for the settlement.
Nothing can bring Christian back. Nothing can erase what happened. And nothing can fill the space that will forevermore be left empty. We will carry Christian's memory, his love, and his legacy with us for the rest of our lives. I thank the court for giving us, as a family, the opportunity to be heard and to let this be a part of the record. But lastly, through it all, we never even received an apology, an acknowledgement for the loss that changed our lives forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hanfield. Would anyone else like to speak at this time?
I don't believe so, Judge. Not from the state.
Once again, for the entire family, thank you for being here. Thank you for the beautiful words that you read and what Mr. Hanfield read. Thank you for sharing the collage of pictures of Christian with me. And I really, really pray that his memory is a blessing to all.
I think if she tries to OnlyFans as the OF killer, the state will come after her money.
No, Your Honor.
Defense?
Not by the defense, Judge.
I want to thank the attorneys once again for their diligent preparation and professionalism throughout the process. The court will be in recess at this time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, so I think we're supposed to have a media statement now by Frank Prieto, this attorney here in the light jacket. So we'll hold on while we'll see what happens with all of that. Make myself bigger now. In fact, maybe I'll turn the volume off in the courtroom. Whoops. Did the feed? Oh, Court TV just ended the feed. They froze the feed. That wasn't me. Oh. Oops. I'm not sure what's going on. The feed is frozen. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Okay, let me take a look and see. I don't think he's going to have anything substantive to say, but he's a good lawyer, and it might be interesting. See if I can find where he may be doing that. So she'll probably do another 20 months. She has 2 more years, sentenced to 6 years, served almost exactly 4 years. She was initially arrested in August of 2022. So she'll get credit for the 4 years, I believe, on a one-to-one basis. And then she's obligated to serve the remaining 2 years. But under Florida law, you get credit for good behavior, 15%. So she only has to serve 85% of the sentence, which would reduce it from 24 months to about 20 months, a little over a year and a half. And then she has 5 years probation after that. And it's not obvious to me where I would find the Prieto statement. I don't know if Court TV is planning to cover it.
See what I've done. I don't know. Process my paperwork. Zoom on out.
Let's see. I'm looking at the
See
feed.
you tomorrow, everybody. Same place.
I think we may be back.
Don't be late. Don't be late.
Let's see.
Future.
Yeah.
Don't be late.
All right. Well,
Yes, sir.
I'm hearing chatter now back in the courtroom. All right. I'm just going to keep this handy. Darn it. That's not what I wanted. Most of the people have left the courtroom. That would be mostly the media. Should I keep this? Keep this up. This is live in the courtroom. So there's Frank Prieto on the left, the female Sabrina Pugliese, female co-counsel on the right, Courtney Clenney in the orange with the, can I say kinky hair in the context of an OnlyFans model, sitting behind them, still handcuffed, of course. Isn't her lawyer the one that got Casey off? Casey, who killed her kids? Yeah. Yep. He's a very talented defense lawyer. He gets good results. Good results. So, again, I want to remind everyone, this is not today's normal show. We will do a show at noon Eastern time as usual. We're going to look at the arguments being presented to the Supreme Court now on the question of whether criminal illegals in America who have been detained, whether it's up to them, whether they remain detained while they're fighting deportation, or whether they can compel the government to release them back amongst the American people for the months or years it would take for them to be to agree to be deported. That's what we'll cover at noon Eastern time. Let's see. Yeah, so someone had mentioned in a comment, she'll go back in OnlyFans as the OF killer and make tons of money. I think that's why the state made that statement. It's not formally part of the plea deal, but they notified the court. They put it in the record that under Florida law, if you commit an unlawful killing and then you try to financially benefit from the killing, like you write a script for a movie or a book or something, and you try to make money from being famous for having unlawfully killed someone, the state can come and seize the revenue that you make from that effort. So I think if she were to go on, I think that's what the state's concerned about, exactly that. She'll go back on OnlyFans as the, I don't know, the Toby killer, the Christian Ombuseli killer, OnlyFans model, and make her money that way, leveraging her infamy as being the woman who killed Christian Ombuseli. And if she does that, I believe the state intends to try to come after her for the money she makes doing that. Now, her lawyer, Frank Prieto, has said, listen, we would fight that. And this wouldn't be the county of Miami doing it. It would be the attorney general of the state of Florida who would be pursuing those revenues. But Frank Prieto has said, we'll fight that. We don't think a law like that is constitutional. It's the equivalent of New York Son of Sam law you may be familiar with. and we would fight it on constitutional grounds and various other grounds. But that's not an issue to be settled today. That's an issue to be settled if she tries to do that. Now, I don't know how she would make money. Certainly not millions of dollars, other than being an OF model. She's kind of, I would think, aging out of the OF model environment. She's 30 years old. She still has nearly 2 years to do in prison before she would be available to do OF modeling. I note that it was not made a condition of her plea that she not engage in online modeling. They could have asked for that. They could make the conditions of a plea can be pretty much anything. I mean, you're agreeing to it if you take the plea. Maybe they tried for that, and the defense counsel, maybe that's what was holding us up for so long. But she's free to go back in OnlyFans. There's no prohibition on that in the plea deal. Let's see. Look at the comments. Here's a couple super chats. Audio is really low from the judge. Yeah, the judge, these courts, they don't know how to work microphones and stuff like that. So the judge was pretty clearly off mic. Her voice was being picked up by some other mic, not directly in front of her. Incidentally, that's the audio we were hearing from the judge. West Pro, $5 says, you said something a while back about subject to jurisdiction. Could you remind me so I can quote it? Well, I don't know. I don't know the context of your question. There's lots of jurisdictional issues that can come up. Jurisdiction, of course, meaning whether you are subject to a courts or other legal authority. I don't know what's going on with the stream. It looks like it's frozen again. Oh, now it's moving. Now it's frozen again. I don't think that's my internet, folks. I think that's Court TV or the Miami-Dade courthouse. All right. Courtney Clenney's leaving the courtroom. There she goes, under custody of corrections officers in handcuffs. Not the fun kind. They do have her cuffed in front of her, which they don't have to do. Normally, you want a suspect with their hands cuffed behind their backs, but of course, she obviously would have already been screened for weapons and such. Maybe that was just an accommodation to someone who's been cooperative. I went to Law and Crime, and they wanted me to pay for membership. But I don't think I'm missing anything. I think let's see, Law and Crime. Courtney Clenney. Yeah, it looks like they made this members only, this hearing. So I'm sticking with Court TV. And now I just can't tell if anything's going on. Let's see. Bup. And by the way, this could have well ended up as a manslaughter conviction had it gone to trial. The narrative would have been that she killed him unreasonably. A reasonable person would not have used deadly force in self-defense. So she killed him unreasonably. It was imperfect self-defense. But imperfect self-defense ends up as manslaughter. It mitigates what would have been murder, a cold-blooded murder, to manslaughter. Then, of course, the sentence might have been different. She might have gotten up to 30 years under Florida law for manslaughter with a deadly weapon. She agreed to six months here. Here we have some images of her. Let's see. I don't know if I can make this full screen. That's her in Ombuseli and Happier Times. That's her with the makeup and the bleached hair. That's her in court. This is from when she was the early days of her incarceration in county jail. Ombuseli alive. That's on the right is them, her attacking him in the elevator, caught on surveillance. Her attacking him again on another occasion. And he's just, security is called to their apartment complex. In fact, they were getting evicted from the apartment complex because they fought so loudly all the time. That's their apartment building. It was pretty nice. At one point, she was throwing the patio furniture off their apartment patio down below. I mean, that's how crazy she was. One of the reasons she was being evicted. Let's see. I don't believe she's ever attacked her own lawyer. Oh, if you mean the 14th Amendment, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, the birthright citizenship question. Yeah, I've talked about it many times. For purposes of birthright citizenship, the men who wrote, debated, and ratified the 14th Amendment understood that the term jurisdiction meant different things in different contexts. For example, you can be subject to the criminal jurisdiction, the regulatory jurisdiction of a state. You're obliged to obey their criminal and civil laws. You're entitled to seek compensation in civil court if someone damages you wrongfully. But that's a different form of jurisdiction than being subject to the political jurisdiction of a government, being subject to the draft, being subject to being called for jury duty. Everybody within the borders of a nation is subject to their regulatory jurisdiction. Even ambassadors are subject to the regulatory jurisdiction of the nation in which they're serving as an ambassador for some other country. They may not be subject to criminal prosecution. They may have immunity from criminal prosecution, but they're still subject to the authority of the nation. The nation can expel them at its leisure as persona non grata. So they're not immune from a foreign ambassador who's in the U.S. is not immune from the power of the U.S. government. The government can just grab them and throw them out of the country. We don't prosecute them for alleged crimes simply as a matter of diplomatic courtesy, not because we can't. But that's a different question than whether or not you're subject to the political jurisdiction. A foreigner, not an American citizen, generally can't be called for jury duty. That's political jurisdiction, not criminal jurisdiction. And the 14th Amendment was intended, when it said subject to the jurisdiction thereof, it meant people subject to the political jurisdiction, American citizens, or at least permanent resident aliens who had made America their nation of residence as opposed to whatever nation they came from. It excluded travelers. It excluded certainly invaders. So those people, children born to those people, do not qualify for birthright citizenship under a proper understanding of the 14th Amendment. The Supreme Court got it wrong. The Supreme Court recently ruled contrary to that. Said even the children born to temporary visitors like visa holders, green card holders, all of these are temporary. Well, sorry, green card would be permanent resident alien, but all forms of visas are temporary presence in the U.S. Children born to those people, temporary sojourners or visitors, and certainly to invaders, people with no lawful presence at all, do not qualify for birthright citizenship. The Supreme Court said the contrary. They said they do. They do qualify for birthright citizenship simply by having been born on American soil. I believe that's incorrect. I believe that's a mistake. And the Supreme Court premised that on constitutional law, making it very difficult for Congress to do anything by statute to overcome their poor decision. That's what that's all about. Okay, so we're let's see, we're right at about 11 a.m. Eastern time. I am doing a show on at noon Eastern time, a normal show, looking at illegal detainees, so illegal migrants in America who've been detained by the U.S. government for purposes of deportation, whether or not they are entitled as a matter of statute or due process to a bond hearing. Then if they're entitled to the bond hearing, they're invariably released on bond, meaning they're released back into the population. They never show up for another court date. You have to go find them and arrest them all over again. And of course, they're still in the country. They have not actually been deported. In the context of the reality that when these illegals are detained for deportation purposes, they can always just concede to the deportation. They're only being detained as long as they wish to be detained. They literally have the keys to their detention. They can get out anytime they want. Just go home. Just go home. They're not in prison. They're not being held against their will. They're being held only as long as they wish to be held. They're free to leave, just not leave within the U.S. They have to leave the U.S. So that's going. That question is going before the Supreme Court now, because a number of federal courts have taken the position I just shared with you, and a couple of federal courts have said, no, they're entitled to a bond hearing, and then the government just has to release these guys back into the wild within the American borders, and do that as many times as we want them to, making it, of course, almost impossible to deport these people, because this right to a bond hearing is triggered after a certain arbitrary amount of time in detention, 6 months, 7 months. But these detainees have so many fake legal arguments they can make to fight detention. They can seek asylum. They can object under the Convention Against Torture Treaty. They can appeal earlier rulings. It's very easy for any detainee, illegal being detained, to stretch out the process by their own legal arguments past 6 or 7 months. In other words, to put themselves in a position where then, according to some federal judges, they would automatically qualify for bond and release back into the U.S. So all their incentives are to delay, get their supposedly automatic bond hearing and release. And then you get to do the whole cycle all over again, endless times. Obviously, that makes it impossible to effectively deport almost anybody. That's the argument going before the Supreme Court that we will talk about at noon Eastern time. I don't see I'll do one last search for the Frank Prieto media thing. And if I can't find it right away, I'm going to wrap this show up and come back and see all of you again at noon. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take the 1 hour break. So I'll see all of you back at noon for our at noon Eastern time for our regularly scheduled show. I'll have my tie on for that. And we'll talk about this whole issue with detained criminal illegals allowed to release themselves from detention back into the American wild, the arguments before the Supreme Court. Until then, I remain attorney Andrew Branca for The Branca Show. Stay safe.